By the way, does everyone know why 1C did not make academical solutions on Postgres? So this was just a project solution. Okay, we'll speak about this later. So let's try to answer your questions. Thank you very much. Don't leave us, please. We will just try to ask why cluster indexes are not created on 1C, and by 1C I mean not a company, because not the company creates it, because programmers are leaving, they're closing some months, they are making this asterisk to asterisk, and the platform is not playing a role, because platform tries to save a person from something that he or she doesn't know about the first form, second form, and that temporary tables need to be indexed, because connections on the basis of index are great. So let us try to answer the questions. So I will just go to the persons who want to ask questions. So Anton, you are here. So I will stand for Dmitry Yukhtimovsky. I am moderator here, but I have many experiences. But please do not ask about Dockers, because Dockers will be the next topic. If it is interesting for you to work with Postgres ProSQL 9 or 10, the 10 in Docker in productive part works, is operated very well on the basic level with 1C. Everything is normal, regular. So, but we will speak about this a bit later. Now I think we will have a question to Piotr. So let's go here, please. Greetings. Just a simple question. Rosgidro RT service, Adashov Konstantin. I want to speak about the support of 1C and PostgreSQL Pro. On the website of 1C, it is stated that you support 8.3 or 9.6. As I understand, it will be perhaps this 10th. The question is whether 1C supports Postgres Pro when the version 8.3 works in compatibility with 8.2. Yes, we do support, because it is made on the basis of configuration, but not on the platform. Yes, we do support, because the configuration, but not the platform, plays here a role. Thank you. And the second question is, when do you plan the 11th version support of it? Answer, during this year. Thank you. My question is, I have platform 8.3 trading version 10 and compatibility regime. Perhaps this is a problem of a platform or of the database Postgres. 1C cannot work with non-standard port of Postgres, and that the accounting works with standard or non-standard ports. Is this the feature of a platform? Perhaps this is not the question really in relation to platform. Let me ask it other way. Postgres server can be started on non-standard port 5432. So it is possible, and some of us make this also for the safety reasons. But the platform makes it in a non-trivial way. Everything works. It cannot not work. Show me the screenshot of your error message. It is not possible, because it is just a trivial setting, and when you start up your base, you're making port equals and the number of a port in your address string. So how did I get to know this sacral information? Postgres has elementary strings for connection. You can take a closer look in DBC, try to run Postgres on Windows, IP address, preferably if your port is in unstandard, you don't need to use DNS name, then space, port, and equals, and that's all. Of course, there can be other ways, but this is rather not recommended. Greetings, my name is Sergey. I have a common question. On one of the first slides, we could see that one of the pluses of 1C is the low cost of entrance, so 2-3 weeks and you can work. But now I understand that Postgres is a mysterious thing. If we use Postgres, can we then invite students after 3 or 2 weeks after study? You need to use students, but Piotr told about other thing, the programmer, the future great programmer of 1C who sees 1C for 2 weeks. It doesn't play a role for him what is behind the port. Nobody will not let him into the clean server base. It will be just a local file on the computer and you can work there. But business, it is very great for business. You can make some silly thing for business after 2 or 3 weeks. And the ideal case would be here when we have different roles, when we separate them. Because this is just a flaw in our existence. The programmer is a DBA administrator of 1C server. He can work with Windows, with Linux. He must only know, and also not about integration, he must only know how to create queries, how to write down queries at 1C, and to operate them on any SQL engine. But how to build up databases, it is not the case for a programmer of 1C. These are different roles and also not for students. At first, what are the students that we are speaking for? In the end, we will get Sergey Kilin from Lipetsk. He is working for 1C and he's a child psychologist, pediatric psychologist. So the question is whether if we use Postgres, will it be harder to work? Will you be harder to establish your knowledge? But if you let students into type configuration and actually a couple of reports, this is the thing that we'll do for a student. It will also be operated as a business task and they will not kill Postgres. Nothing will happen. And if you are just a businessman in Lipetsk Oblast, so this is just a real case. There was a nephew who came to a configurator. We opened to the student IDE and access to the whole infrastructure with MS SQL, Windows, Linux, Python for Java. But here you need to understand this. But the mistakes in project are not solved by the means of Postgres. If a student will project metadata, will create tables, then it will lead to nothing. Actually, this is a great question, thank you. Because as I told you, you will need 2 or 3 weeks. Just imagine you will grant access to someone and someone will write down queries. But this is the case. You know, I know people who studied MySQL for 2 weeks or 2 months. And when 1C or 8 was established, I thought that it was the same. But in the end, I hated this language of SQL 7. But still, it was the same SQL. In 2 weeks, you can click with your mouse very well and you can install some buttons on screen. And this is the same case as with Delphi. So I was working with Delphi for 5 years. But the main problem here is that If a student writes a query, if this is just a regular ALAP query, just to select some information from database and to enter some SKD, but if you are calculating costs, production costs, it's not the way for to invite students. My colleague from Irkutsk, from Baikalsk, from the Baikal paper combinate, he rewrote a query in 10 minutes because there was a task and there was a clear cost with many steps. But the thing that worked previously was working for 8 hours, and the same was redrafted to work for 10 minutes, and this has been made after 2 weeks of study. Fedor Stigaev, Postgres Pro. Let me add some fire here and induce the fight here, because I have an experience with 1C, and I was not seeing 1C. I was just seeing 1C as a database and nothing more. And 1C showed me some queries that would be better if I would add some speed there. And the dialect of SQL in SQL and in Postgres is different, and queries from SQL are translated into dialect, and then we started with Postgres, and then Postgres is 10 times slower than it. I see the query, I take a deeper look at it, then I want to build it, and then we make a comparison with MS-SQL, and then my colleagues tell me then, great, MS-SQL is better, let us migrate into the SQL, let us translate it to SQL, MS-SQL. But then, when we translate it from Postgres, we see that MS-SQL is 10 times slower than the PG. So the structures are very different, therefore the same queries will work at a different time. Yes, this is the question to our competence. Rakitin Alexander, greetings. Yep. Anatoly. My name is Anatoly, and I want to ask you. Let us think about it. Perhaps I do not wait for your answer right now. I'm more administrator, and now in 1C we have everything to work with Linux. There is Postgre open source database. There is a platform that works with Linux or with CentOS. Everything works great, and I have seen many great solutions. But there is a problem. Being an administrator, I start to work with Linux, I install it, and then in 5 minutes, 1C guy comes to me and says me, friend, my works are not made, and it's just because it's used some object. Yes, let it be some object, and some object is not seen by Linux. So, my question is, all the cases that I solved by the means of this mechanism can be solved another way, but there are many plugins or many operating programs that you can find in internet. But still, did you think about the moment when we will be able to use the same, use this broadly? I can answer. It's a very interesting topic. I work with Linux for many years. COM objects are used for two purposes. The combination with Excel or Word. I wrote recently how you can save up to 2 or 3 documents or several documents in 1C. There is an element in 1C. You just can read about this in my article, one of my recent articles. And the second application is regular expression, regexp. Unfortunately, if when one C will create regex, you can use it. Then you will not need any comp files. I can tell you as an administrator what is the purpose of this com plus or com object. Let us dig into the history. 1C platform, I think I met this platform in 1999 or 97. So the 7 and 7.7 and so on, the 6. The essence of this application is that there was a set of specialists who began to work on a business platform that's name was 1C. They were integrating. They could be integrated with Microsoft, and it was not scaled for whole Russia. So how it is done? Excel com object, script shell is com object. So configurations of such type as from the part of the community. This is our legacy. If you will set and grab find some object into 1C code, then you take it Zabbix, because it's impossible to use this. But this is the first way. And the second is the use of direct file ways, set dots and full text search for source code. And here 1C source code is in the access or on Git. You can just include one. You can operate one Git server and start it. Perhaps it could be a GitLab, and there is labs high that can let you to expose before your programmer sees it, because your programmer can close month, but actually for you this is impossible. No, I do understand how I can make this. Thank you very much about this information. But the tendency, I'm speaking about the tendency when the programmers will not use this. But the programmers do not think about this. We need just to write down scripts of monitoring with a static analyzer of code that will see or make evident something. 1C speaks about multi-platform, and programmers are writing down the other things. I cannot say when, but 1C is oriented on two types of users. So mono users and corporate market. Mono users are for at least 2 years used for admins, for administrators. I think in 9 administrator tools they are rerouted to the servers, and nobody will speak about this. If we will not have additional support of ComObject, we just can get rid of it. The second question is the corporate. In corporations, we are facing some problems. Not everyone has this approach, and you cannot handle it. This is a limitation. But what is the driver for corporations? For API, it's independence of platform. Because if you are changing between 1C basis for COM object, the platform should be the same. This is a huge limitation of business.
And now we can see a trend, now just finishing actually, and there are some other previous things that have no other API. These will be over when platform announce the finishing period for COM support. You know that 14th platform does not support previous interface. It will not be launched. So they made this decision. Someday they will make this decision regarding COM as well. Well, there are a lot of supports, but actually, on the whole, there are no smooth connection of various platforms for Convo. And now there is such a trend that many businesses change it. There are millions of platforms that can export data. I have a lot of small users, and if I use so there are thousands of users, and someone writes there and they use some extract. You have a cloud and you launch one C. No, I launch users in the cloud, and various coders write them. Yes, all coders on the market. So it can be like yellow oil company. You know, there is blue oil company and red oil company and yellow oil company. Do the way the yellow oil company does. They have a cloud. They put perimeter. I just explained it. So their source code is not in configurator. This deployed phase is conducted in validator, and automatically, administrators wrote it within a week. In that case, everything will be fine. And while psychologists are coding on 1C, you are from Rose Oblaka. Security profile, just switch off the tick. It's easy to lock it. It takes one click only. Do you use Postgres? Yes. What version? 9.6. Why not 10? Oh. Well, we're slow. I am Alexander Rakidin, Chief IT Specialist in a federal autonomous institution. The yellow one? No, I can tell you the name for Hermes, but I think that you do not know this name. We are a federal autonomous institution, so we had a directive to consider the opportunity of migration to alternative software, and we looked at Linux, Postgres, we used test mode, and we realized that we have some problems. When we migrated to Linux, all printed forms were faulty. Our typical solution is BGO 2.0, and we have various forms that we provide to tax office. In some cases, barcodes should be printed on them, and we were faced with some problems. So, I'd like to know, from the point of view 1C, will there be any checklist according to which, when you migrate to Linux and Postgre, you have to press these buttons and find special objects. You can use search, you can check special things, and will these checklists and guidelines be present? And there is also the issue of authorization. We used Apache, and if we try authorization domain, we can do it for client, but we cannot do it through web client. We looked at partners program, did not find anything there. So I'd like to know whether any checklist will be present or not. Maybe within this checklist, in the part of authorization, this will be present. Thank you. Well, in standard configuration in contemporary versions, comma objects should not be present. Well, speaking about transition and checklist, when there is specific number of query, any activity is about specific amount of resources that we take from other projects that had already been planned, so checklist on transition will be present. Regarding printed forms, I guess that over the last year we discussed this issue on the forum. Well, a lot of issues has been risen. Many people used 64-bit platform, and they said that they were not able to provide reports because of an error in the printed form, and people used 32-bit platform because they needed to have it urgently, because it takes time to write these requests in 1C and register it. Well, I would like to share with you my little experience of work, especially in state companies. I even have a letter from the minister. That's like an award. I'm not going to discuss the details. Actually, the matter is that the best option for deploying 1C and Postgres is when Postgres is on Linux and the platform is on Windows. And it's really desirable if you have virtualized. I'm speaking about the server of application to work with the network that works in gigabyte mode. This is the third adapter fault because, well, you transferred, you have Linux adapter problem, and suddenly on Postgres you thought that you would have 10 gigabyte network. Well, actually, no, it's not like that, but Postgres is on Linux and the server of applications is on Windows. This is the best scheme. Why? Not because 1C platform cannot work with Linux on the server. No. First of all, you need to have Linux expert. Why? Because when 1C server is deployed on Linux, you will have problems with Kerberos. For domain of authorization to work, you will need to have 5th edition of Kerberos and to collect it from the source documents for the main authorization to work. But this is the problem of specific 5th Kerberos because syntoses included quite a weird version. Debian is more interesting. Ruben and Debian are more interested in that respect, but that's about 1C server. You just need to have Linux administrator that will see the libraries. And for file share to work, you will have no synthesis problems, but Samba will have some faults because that is about Samba edition. You need to understand what libraries can be linked, and that's not about Postgres and 1C server. And secondly, for Apache domain identification to work, you need to have a proxy because this is the only thing that can provide the identification inside, but that's about Linux administrator again. Well, unfortunately, it's about Linux world. Welcome to Linux world. For me to understand this information, well, that's about the server. That's about the server. Once the server, that's a different world. Web servers are there. Well, yes. Okay, thank you. I guess we can put it differently. We have InfoStant portal. Let me speak. Well, we can try to use InfoStart and group the current experience that we have. Actually, it is provided in fragmented articles. This is InfoStart portal. And regarding 1C company, this will be part of form. There is the address CTKP. Well, I guess we will speak about Alpine Linux now. Well, I guess there is some problem here. The problem of bundle of common stack. The only thing I can mention now is that everything is recorded. Well, I just want everyone to understand me. That's about import substitution. We can describe it. Well, yes, I understand. But, this should be done step by step. Why do you want to have import substitution for everything at once? You can substitute DBMS. And after that, you would do it step by step. Still, you will need to have outsourcing that has a stack certificate. So what's the name of this document? Oh, and state secret. It should also be considered. I just want you to see the difference. Thin customer works for Linux as well. For example, we take a Linux client, 1C client, where you launch OpenOffice or MyOffice. If you want to reject Microsoft. But that's not about DPMS. Yes, further. Of course, I have not installed one C platform for Linux or for Windows, but I represent a company that produces a product for Linux and Windows, and I actually understand what you are speaking about. And for us, for vendors, the solution is only one. We have a list of operational systems with guaranteed working ability. If you made a step aside, you will have some problems. These problems can be solved. But I really like the description. If you take synthesis, you will have one problem. If you have debits, you will have other problem. And it is this way. If we speak about Windows, there are its problems as well. Historically, Postgres was developed in Unix environment, not Linux necessarily. It worked on Unix when Linux has not been devised yet. Postgres mainstream is Linux. Everything works there. If you want to have something special, all the operational systems will work as well. And if you're smart enough, and maybe you remember that multiplication of power by distance gives you the result. Well, we will have lunch very soon. I would like to ask a question. I have the mic. Thank you. Well, I will try to decipher the previous questions. My question is like this. I am one C developer. I has not worked with Postgres. I know that PGAdmin is present. I launched it several times, but when I write a query in 1C or when I create a mechanism, I'm guided by the theoretical and practical knowledge I have, and I can imagine the way the planner will work, the way the query plan will be compiled, the way it will be executed. I know that logic operators and actual implementation are not always the same. When I write select all from the table of goods, where the link is, of course, at first it will apply index field, it will not fulfill join. I guess you understand what I'm speaking about. So, I have some understanding of it. The question is, there is a trend, we are migrating to Postgres. Will my world be broken or not? Do I need to have some special knowledge for me to write this query in a different way? What should I know? What should I be ready for being the developer? And what can you recommend me on the basis of your experience? Well, I can say the following. There was a good example with clustered indexes. So on SQL, when you are in indexes, that is good. Well, you are used to write like this, without order by and the field. And when you started using Postgres, it does not work anymore. And actually, your knowledge will expand. Before that, you did not know why it works, and now you will have to learn that SQL standard does not have any output order apart from order by, and in MS SQL when you use cluster indexes. And well, if it is similar to the order you need, you understood that before that it worked randomly. So you should be ready that you will learn many new things and you will learn the details you did not know before. So I will have to study documentation of Postgres, not actually Postgres, SQL, MS SQL. Well, this is a process of learning. Well, may I check? May I check? Your world in terms of DBMS. MS SQL has the view known as missing index. Well, yes, that's missing index. It offers the indexes that are missing. Have you ever seen missing indexing in your temporary tables? Yes, I have. Do you index temporary tables? Well, it depends on the things I do and the number of lines in this temporary table. So the cost of this index and the profit I get, actually this was my test for you. Your knowledge is quite normal and nothing will be changed for you. Well, the answer is, if being one C developer, you already look at the plan of query in the database. For you, there will be no surprises. You can migrate, you can tune technical code, look at the queries and check what is wrong. Maybe, as further said, some queries worked fast randomly. And in this case, you will understand very fast what is wrong. If you analyze query plan, you will have no miracles there. Everything will be normal. When you say that you are a developer and check query plan in terms of 1C competence, you are a performance expert. You're a performance professional. In 1C, grades are a bit different. There are certificates. 1C professional, 1C specialist, and after that, this is divided. So you speak as 1C professional. You say that you're a developer. Well, yes, you're a developer, but you already have some knowledge in that sphere. Okay, I'm calm now. So I will not have to reread your cell code. Hello. I have a question like this. When we worked with Microsoft SQL, we used Management Studio to monitor query plans. And what tool can you recommend for working with Linux? Well, you did not use Management Studio, you used Profiler. Well, Profiler, but from the same kit. Well, PostgreSQL, 1C technological log with plans export. So you look at technological log, yes. You do not check everything. You check something that is non-standard. For example, queries that last longer than 5 seconds. For example, you have a query. As you mentioned, there is PGAdmin and there is a query. You work with it. You will see the plan of query. It is quite similar to MS SQL. So PGAdmin is the main tool for query plans. This is the most popular tool. It's not the only one, but it's most popular. There are other services as well, open source software, but this is your choice. Actually, plans are a bit simpler because plans and visualization of these plans, the details of these plans, stem from Postgres, and the tools such as PGAdmin is its visualizer in graphical form.
Therefore, there is no magic in it. You just need to take a closer look at what Postgres gives. Thank you. So, we're quit for now, colleagues.